Greetings and salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today we are going to be talking about some of my favorite books that I read in 2020. I have a lot to show you, and I'm really excited. Okay, I knew that this video was going to be so long, and as I was looking at all the books I read in the year, I was really struggling to condense it. So I thought it would be fun to do this giant book award video. I'm calling this the Sammy Awards. This is my own personal awards for my favorite books that I read in the year. I ended up breaking it down so it was more cohesive. I will also be leaving timestamps down below in case you're looking for a specific category. You guys will see. We have awards for the best cover. Then we have awards for the best friends to lovers romance. So I just thought it would be really fun to kind of do it this way. I hope you guys enjoy this format. I'm just doing my favorites overall. So some of these books I might have read in 2019 or 2018. I think it speaks to the quality of the book if they stand the test of time and they're still my favorites after all these years. I'm making this video up in 3 parts, and that's where the timestamps will come in. So the first half of the video is going to be fun awards, so the best cover, my favorite book, etc, etc. The middle part of the video is going to be genres, so I will be talking about the best historical romance that I read, the best cozy mystery that I read, and then the last part of the video is going to be tropes, so very specific book recommendations. I'll be talking about the best friends to lovers romance and the best enemies to lovers romance, so that is going to be more specific book recommendations. You guys will see as we go along. I know that I'm talking a mile a minute, but this video is going to be so long. So let's just get started. Let's just hop right into what everyone wants to know. I don't know if everyone wants to know this. Nobody cares that much, but I think my most asked question is, what is your favorite book of the year? What is the favorite book that you have ever read? And I actually don't know if I read this in 2019 or 2020, but in general, let's all say it together. Again, The Magic by Lisa Kleypas. I had to give this the award for my favorite book of the year, my favorite book of all time. I have recommended this countless times. Let me show you the step back before I start gushing about it. Oh, yes, let me show you guys this. Sorry, I'm so excited. So my dear friend Avery ended up sending this little drawing. She drew my favorite book. Isn't that the sweetest? It is such a pretty bookmark, and I cherish it. So thank you so much, Avery. I will link her channel down below because she gives awesome book recommendations. But let me show you the step back. How stinking pretty is that? So this is a prequel to the Wallflower series. That is a series that you don't have to read in order, but if you want to, this is the prequel. It has 2 love stories in it. It follows Marcus's 2 sisters. If you're familiar with the series, you would know who Marcus is. Although it does have 2 romances in it, the main one is an angsty second chance romance with Eileen and McKenna, my sweet baby McKenna. I just love him so much. They fall in love when they're really young, but their love is pretty forbidden because they come from different classes. His father ends up finding out about their little love affair, and McKenna ends up getting sent away. Years later, he comes back as this self-made man, still heartbroken after everything that happened. There's a lot of secrets between them, and it's just so good. There's a trigger warning for alcohol addiction, so just know that going into the book. But yeah, again, The Magic, it wins my favorite book of the year. It does. It really does. Second award is the book I'm most likely to recommend. One of my most asked questions is from people who are new to historical romance, which I love because I feel like I'm a newbie to historical romance. A lot of people will say that they're interested in historical romance, but they don't really know where to start. And the book that I almost always recommend is Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. This book is flawless and technically perfect. This book follows Hester and Galen. Hester is a part of the Underground Railroad, and she ends up meeting Galen by his moniker, the Black Daniel. He is injured when he comes to her house, so she ends up nursing him back to health, and it follows their romance. It is just one of the most slow burn, seductive, impactful romances that I've ever read. There's so much culture intertwined into this book. Beverly Jenkins is truly just a master at her craft, and I feel like when I think of this book is like a love story for historical romance. It is just the epitome of everything that I want in historical romance, and I feel like I could recommend it time and time again to people because there is just so much you can gain from this book. I really fell in love with Beverly Jenkins this year, and I'm definitely wanting to, you know, read the rest of her backlist in the year 2021. If you guys are interested, I do have a book club with Jessica from Peace Love Books, and our first book pick in the month of January is Night Song by Beverly Jenkins. So if you've never read it, Beverly Jenkins, now's the time to start. And this is the book that we're going to be reading. It's her first published book, I believe. So that's what we're going to be reading. Next book award is the book most likely to reread. I do reread books, even though I have like a very lengthy TBR. I like rereading my favorite books. It brings me a lot of comfort. So there are a lot of books that I will reread, but one that just like sticks with me is Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton. I adore this book. I think I read it 3 times in 2020, twice on audio, 1 physically reading the book, and I enjoyed it every single time. And I think the reason I say like this is my most likely book to reread is because it is such like a heavy fantasy book with like so much dimension, and I felt like every single time I read the book I was learning something new. Those are 3 main characters who come from this town that has actually made a bargain with the devil, and the bargain that they made was that every couple of years they sacrifice this boy into the forest and what they call the slaughter moon, and because they do that their town is really plentiful, they have really great harvest, nobody gets sick. As the years go by, the harvest starts to take more and more, and something goes wrong with the bargain. So our 3 main characters sort of come together to figure out what was the deal made all those years ago. This also features a polyamorous relationship. Although the relationship is not the center focus of the book, it's still there and it's so well written. Okay, so the next award is the book most likely to make me cry. Now, I've said this before, I'm a very emotional reader. I cry when I'm happy, I cry when I'm sad, I cry when I'm scared. Like, I'm a crier, it is true. But the book most likely to make me cry this year was Beach Read by Emily Henry. And I picked this one because like when you look at the cover, it looks really sweet and innocent, like a fluffy romance. It hit me really, really hard, okay? It's kind of an enemies to lovers / second chance romance book. So both of our characters are writers. Our heroine ends up staying at her father's beach town after he passes away. She's really going through the grief of that. And then her neighbor is Gus, who is like her college nemesis. Like they were always competing against each other, and she feels like he was just always better at everything. So it starts off as an enemies to lovers romance, but it really just goes into something else. Since they're both writers and they're both in a rut writing their next book, they decide to switch genres. So she writes romance and he writes, what does he write? Literary fiction? I think literary fiction. So they decide to switch and write each other's genre as kind of like a competition. And oh my gosh, I adored their romance. Trigger warnings. I would definitely look into the reviews before reading this book because there's trigger warnings for loss of a loved one, depression, divorce, just some really heavy stuff. And it was unexpected because, like I said, when you look at this cover, it looks sweet, but it was both sweet and emotional, and that's why I gave it a 5 stars. I will try not to stay on one book for too long, but I also want to tell you guys the synopsis. Anyways, the next book award is the best cover, and I think everyone knows what it is. It is Where Passion Leads by Lisa Kleypas. I'm just so happy I have this book. You guys know that I hunted down this book. It was really hard to find, and it's stunning. Like, let me just get in a real close view. It's beautiful. Okay, so the next award is the most underrated book, or books in this case. And what I'm going to be talking about is the Wicked Wallflower series by Christy Caldwell. I have talked about this book plenty, but I don't hear a lot of people hyping it up, and I feel like it just deserves all of the attention. I have read the first 3 books in the series, and those are all really good as well, but the one I really want to talk about is Spitfire by Christy Caldwell. This follows Clara and Henry. Our hero ends up getting jumped in the streets of London, and our heroine finds him and nurses him back to health, but it turns out that he is a duke, which she's not happy about because she is a lady of the night and she doesn't really like people with titles, so they end up going their separate ways. A couple of months later, he accidentally sends her a cease and desist letter to close her opera house, and she is real pissed about it. So it's kind of an opposites attract, enemies to lover situation. I just really enjoyed this one because both of our characters are a little bit older. I loved how our heroine was just so strong and fierce, and then our hero was just like the soft, sweet cinnamon roll, and he's a virgin hero, which you guys know is my favorite thing ever. So I really enjoy this series, and it's all on Kindle Unlimited. You can even get the audiobook on Kindle Unlimited, so like just read the series. I don't remember if this one has any trigger warnings, but some of the earlier books, like the first and third book, I think do. I think there are some trigger warnings for loss of a loved one and sexual assault, so just please read the reviews on Goodreads in case you need some trigger warnings. Okay, so the last fun award, and then we're going to go ahead and transfer over to like my favorite genres, and this is the award for the best series. And this one was really tough because I read a lot of series, but I had to give this one to the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. You're going to see a lot of Lisa Kleypas in this video, and that's just because she is one of my favorite authors. But the Wallflower series in particular made me fall in love with a historical romance. It basically follows a group of girls who are considered wallflowers. None of them are married, and they're always kind of like on the side of the room. They end up striking this friendship and making this deal that they're all going to help each other find a husband. And I just think it is like the epitome of like a girl gang, and they're so supportive of each other and lovely. And yeah, the Wallflower series, the best series for me. Okay, are you guys still watching? I hope so. So we are moving on to the genres. So for the first one that I want to talk about is the best novella that I read this year. I want to do a specific video for this because the first half of the year, I read pretty much all historical romance, and then the second half of the year, I read pretty much all novellas because for some reason, I just couldn't stay focused on like full-length novels, and novellas really just helped me get out of a really deep reading slump. But if I had to pick just one, it's so hard. But if I had to pick one, I would say Go Deep by Risley Adams. This is a friends to lovers romance. Our heroine writes erotica books, and she is in a little bit of a writer's block. So she ends up propositioning her best friend for them to hook up so she can get a little inspiration, and it follows the romance. It was just well done. One of my favorite friends to lovers romances as well, so I would highly recommend it. Next award goes to the best fantasy romance, and I'm gonna have to pick The House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I read this in a reading vlog, and it was just a really great experience. It follows our main character, who is kind of like a social worker, but he's a social worker for kids who have magical powers. So he evaluates them, sees if they are safe for society, and places them in different homes. He ends up getting an assignment, a very odd assignment, where he has no idea like what the kids' powers are. It's very secretive, so he gets sent to like this island, and he ends up meeting a bunch of these kids that have all of these really unique powers. Like one of the kids is literally Lucifer's son, the devil's son. So pretty crazy group of kids, but they end up all being really inspirational to him. And it does have a very small romance in it, but it's really beautifully written. Next one is the best paranormal romance, and I would say the Green Creek series as a whole, also by TJ Klune. Like obviously I have to give him 2 slots in here because he's one of my favorite authors. If I had to pick one book in that series, I think I'm gonna have to go with Brother Song, which is the last book. I read it this year because it's very rare that I read a series and the last book wraps everything up exactly how I wanted it. I don't have any additional questions. I'm not left wanting more. Like this was just the perfect ending. So that's why it's my favorite. This entire series is a paranormal series that follows werewolves and witches, and it's all male-male romances that are super angsty, and I adore it. I adore it. Okay, the hardest award to give is the best historical romance. This was hard. A lot of the awards instantly came to me, but to pick just one historical romance is impossible. Obviously, I would say again The Magic, but I don't want to mention that book twice. So, oh, I'm still kind of like torn, so I'm gonna talk about 2, okay? So the first one is Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins. Again, I have given every single Beverly Jenkins books that I've read 5 stars, so I could literally recommend any of her books as the best historical romance. The other one is following her dream of opening like a cafe, and she's trying to travel to California, but she ends up getting kind of stranded in a desert, and that's where our hero comes in and finds her and nurses her back to health. Follows their romance. Their romance is pretty forbidden because our hero is white passing. He is African American, but appearance wise he can pass for a white man, which he does, and he receives a lot of privilege for that. He doesn't know that he's passing, so it's pretty forbidden, and it's just so beautifully written. I would highly recommend this book. Another one that I would say is the best historical romance is Mine Till Midnight by Lisa Kleypas. This is the first in the Hathaway series. I think the Hathaway series would make a great Netflix adaptation. I've said it before, I'm gonna keep saying it until it happens. This would be a great Netflix adaptation. Cameron is one of my my favorite heroes of all time, and I feel like that's all I need to say. You just need to read the book because of Cameron. The next category is the best contemporary romance. I know these are all like romance, but I mean, that's what I read. I read 150 books this year and they were all romances, which makes me really happy. For contemporary romance, I have to give it to Sugar Daddy. It follows Liberty, who at a very young age has to care for her sister and kind of be her guardian. And there's a lot of responsibility placed on her, and she's kind of just like going through life trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life and what her purpose is, and it is a love triangle. I really liked our heroine in this book, and again, this is another one that I have recommended countless times. This category is the best cozy mystery that I've read. Cozy mysteries were another genre that I discovered in the year 2020, and I'm really happy about it. If I had to recommend just one though, I would definitely recommend Meet Your Baker by Ellie Alexander. This is the first book in the Bake Shop mystery series. I am on like the third book right now. Still enjoying it. It's just a really great story. So it follows our main character, Jules, who is headed back home after some struggles with her marriage. She's on the brink of divorce. She used to work on a cruise, but now she's headed back home to help her mom with the family bake shop. And then, bum, 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 there's a murder and she has to figure out who did it. Category is the best YA, and I would have to give that to Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Look at this cover. It is so stinking pretty. Follows our main character, who is a brujo. He comes from a long line of brujas and brujos, and his family just doesn't really understand him, and although they love him, they don't really accept him for who he is. He is a trans boy just trying to convince his family that he is able to be a brujo. This does have a trigger warning for loss of a loved one, so he is also grieving and trying to just discover himself as a young teen. In the midst of all of that, one of their family members is pretty brutally murdered, and they can all feel it, and they're all trying to figure out what happens. And in his attempt to summon his cousin to find out what happened, he ends up summoning a boy from school who passed away and is kind of interwoven in the sinister things that are going on. Really well written, has a sweet romance in it, and I just loved like the more magical elements in it. So definitely loved this book, and I'm excited to read anything by Aiden Thomas. Counting this in as a genre, and it's the best retelling, and that is Hook by Gina L. Maxwell. It is the second book in the Neverland series. This follows Captain Hook and John Darling, Wendy's brother, and it is a male-male romance. The first book is like a Peter Pan retelling, and that one's also really good, but I adored the second book. Pretty dark book. There are some heavy trigger warnings for sexual assault and child abuse and loss of a loved one and addiction. Hook is kind of like this captain of a motorcycle club, and then John is an FBI agent, and he ends up having to team with Hook to find this really awful drug dealer. John ends up contacting Hook because Hook was placed in like this orphanage as he was a kid, and they want to catch the guy who ran the orphanage because he was just like overall a really bad guy. Now we are on to the third section of my awards, and that is going to be tropes. So I'm going to go through each individual trope, or the tropes I could think of. I'm sure I forgot some, and I'm going to talk about like the best book that I read that had this trope. You might see some repeats, but yeah, let's just jump right into it. This one is the Best Friends to Lovers, and this is kind of where I said that some of these books I didn't necessarily read in 2020, and they're kind of just all-time favorites. I have to give it to Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This book just makes me inexplicably happy. I adore it. Josh is one of my favorite heroes. He's such a soft, sweet cinnamon roll. So Josh and Hazel meet in college, and they kind of reconnect when they're older, and they decide to become best friends. And the whole story is kind of them trying to set each other up on these dates and hook each other up, and they end up falling for each other. Just a lot of hilarious antics. And if you ever need like a book that just is going to make you smile, this one right here. Editing Sam here. My hair's a mess. I'm not wearing any makeup. My favorite things in romance are heroes that are cinnamon rolls, meaning they're very sweet, they're very soft. They can be alphas, but like deep down, they're really just cinnamon rolls to our heroines. But I didn't give like any awards for that, and I feel like I definitely need to. So here I am popping in, throwing in an extra award, and that award is the Best Cinnamon Roll Hero. And this was tough because I had a ton, but if I had to pick one, I think I'm gonna go with Hefty. This book was a short, steamy novella. It's a lover's novella and a brother's best friend trope, which is another award I should have given. Characters have always had a crush on each other, but our hero was just a little insecure and our heroine didn't want to like ruin their friendship. But then they decide to explore the attraction that they have for each other. Our hero is a burly football player and our heroine is a cheerleader, and it's so good. Now we can get back to our regularly scheduled program right now. The best enemies to lovers. Now, I'm kind of iffy with this trope. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it. But I read some good ones that have this trope. And the one that I'm going to give this award to is The Hellion by Christy Caldwell. This is the first book in the Wicked Wallflower series. Kind of like a Romeo and Juliet retelling because our hero and heroine's family are enemies. The hero's family owes them a favor and they agree to like watch one of their daughters and kind of introduce them into the season so they can find a husband. So that's where our heroine comes in, and our hero is tasked with like being her bodyguard and watching her, making sure she doesn't get into anything, and it follows their romance. Our heroine is very, very sassy. Again, there are some trigger warnings for loss of a loved one and sexual assault, so just so you know going in. Best second chance romance, we don't really even have to talk about it. It's again the magic, but it's a Clapis. Duh. The best forbidden romance, and I have to give it to Katie Roberts. She writes some real forbidden, steamy things, and the Touch of Taboo series, I mean, just in the title alone makes you know it's a forbidden, steamy romance. So the first book is called Your Dad Will Do, and I think just by the title, you guys know this is going to be steamy and wild. Everyone finds out that her boyfriend was cheating on her, so as revenge, she ends up hooking up with his dad, but she has secretly always, you know, been attracted to his dad and wanted a relationship with him, so they just follow that fantasy. It is pretty taboo, but I mean, it was steamy. What can I say? The entire series is great. The second one is a Christmas romance, which you don't have to read during the Christmas time. I read it during July. It's a married couple that the husband decides that for Christmas, they're going to give his best friend his wife. And it follows this like polyamorous, sexy relationship between the three of them. This trope is the best marriage of convenience. Historical romances have this trope that I just adore, and it's marriage of convenience. I don't know why, but I love reading about it. And the best one for me is Devil in a Winter, which is the third book in the Wallflower series. It follows Sebastian and Evie. Evie does come from a lot of money, but she's very shy and she has a family that is quite abusive towards her. So she ends up contacting Sebastian since he needs money. He has a title, but his father kind of like wasted away all their money. So she's like, hey, you need money and I need a husband, so let's get married. And it follows their romance. Let me show you guys the step back. This is also one of my favorite step backs of the year. The best fated mates trope, and I would have to give that to Wolf Gone Wild by Juliet Cross. Follows Mateo, who is a werewolf and is really struggling like with his inner alpha. He feels as if he has been cursed, so he ends up contacting our main character. I believe her name is Evie, and she is a witch and her specialty is in breaking curses, but it's kind of forbidden for her to help him because for whatever reason, werewolves are like their sworn enemies. He ends up helping each other, and little does she know that she is his mate, and it's just a really steamy, fun, awesome romance. I love this romance so much. Best love triangle. One of my favorite tropes of all time. I know a lot of people don't like love triangles, but like me, I love that stuff. Really, I love polyamorous relationships. So maybe I need to stop saying I like love triangles because really I just want like all of them to be together. Yeah, that's what I like. So I do have a video on this trope. I'll link down below if you want more recommendations. But for this one, I'm going to recommend Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert. And this is a polyamorous relationship. This is part of her Wicked Villains series, and basically like fairy tale retellings where the villains are the heroes, and it's very steamy. It was Hades, Meg, and Hercules, and they all kind of hook up. Hades ends up contacting Hercules because he wants to like get revenge on his dad Zeus, but they end up falling for each other obviously, and it's super steamy and I love it. The next one I want to talk about is the best surprise baby trope. You guys didn't expect to see this award in this video, did you? I have not been shy on how much I don't like this trope, but one of my favorite books of the year has this trope. Yes, ma'am. And it's from Beverly Jenkins, Destiny Surrender. This has a surprise pregnancy trope or a surprise baby trope in it, and it is just one of my favorite books that I've read all year. Our heroine, Billy, who is a lady of the night, and that's how she meets our hero, Drew. They end up hooking up and she becomes pregnant. She doesn't tell him right away because they really never had a conversation of being together. They were strictly like a hookup situation. So she ends up taking care of her son, taking responsibility for it. But a year passes and her son are threatened. So she does end up having to tell him because she wants the protection for her son, and it follows their romance. All of that happens like in the beginning of the book, so that's not a spoiler. And I really liked it because they really had to figure out how to not only like be good parents, but be good together. And it was just a really great angsty romance, and I enjoyed reading it. I've come to my last award. I had a lot of fun filming this video, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. The last award goes to the best grumpy sunshine trope. So a grumpy hero and a sunshine heroine, and that is A Beastly Kind of Earl by Mia Vinci. Definitely an opposites attract romance, and it was one of my favorite historical romances. This definitely could be considered like an underrated historical romance because I don't hear a ton of people talking about it. This is kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Our heroine is such a trickster. Her sister is supposed to be getting married to someone that she doesn't want to be married to, so she ends up helping out her sister and pretending to be her. In the process of pretending to be her sister, she ends up like tricking this Earl, ruined and cast away from her family because these two guys ended up, you know, just spreading a lot of lies about her and ruining her reputation. So her main goal is to gain that reputation back and speak out about everything that happened to her. Our hero is an Earl who is waiting on inheritance, but there is like a stipulation that he can only get the inheritance if he gets married. So she is kind of using his title for power, and then he is kind of using her to get married so that he can get his inheritance. And they both know that they're lying to each other, but they don't tell each other that. So it's really great, and I really liked it. So if you like the grumpy sunshine hero trope, you would like it. Okay, I feel like I was talking a mile a minute and I talked about so many books. I hope you guys found some good recommendations in this video. It was an interesting reading year. I discovered historical romance, which was one of the best things ever. I read a lot of novellas, which was a lot of fun. 2020 was tough for a lot of us. I think we can all say that we all went through moments of just craziness, but I will say that creating this channel has been, I don't want to cry. Okay. I didn't know I was going to cry right now. Creating this channel has been, oh my God, I'm crying. Okay. I'm going to mess up my makeup. I told you guys, I am a crier. Like, it's what I do. But when I created this channel, I never expected to love it so much and to find so many great people. Okay, get it together. My channel for a little over a year, and it has just been one of the biggest blessings. I have found so many great friends, so many great people that comment on my videos and show me love and give me great book recommendations, and it has just helped me. It has helped me so much. Like, I can't even put it into words. And if I put it into words, I'm going to cry. So my favorite thing of 2020 was definitely this channel and you guys. And that's all I'm going to say because I am on the border of bursting into tears. If you take the time to watch my videos, to comment on my videos, honestly, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I love you. And that is the end of this video. Okay. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me. I hope you guys are all staying happy and healthy, and I'll talk to you next time.